right, wonderful. Well, hello, and welcome to the Reimagining Events, Evolution, and Innovation in the Meeting and Event Planning Industry webinar. Today, we will cover the ways that leading industry professionals are navigating through changes, preparing for the future, and creating new and exciting opportunities for growth. I am joined by 7 experts in the field of meeting and event planning. They are serving as our panelists today, and they are also instructors in our meeting and event planning certificate program here at UNC Charlotte. And as I said earlier, my name is Krystle Kunnathur. I'm a program director at the UNC Charlotte School of Professional Studies Meeting and Event Planning Certificate Program, and I will serve as today's host and moderator. So I am a white woman with glasses on and blonde hair. I'm wearing a white shirt and have a background of the UNC Charlotte campus with a clock tower behind me. And our event aims to be as accessible as possible. So here are some features that can help make your experience more inclusive. So live captioning. We enable live captioning, which you can turn on or off at the bottom of your screen. We also will have access to transcripts after the event. We will provide a full transcript and video recording via email. We also aim to make our materials accessible. So any slides or supplemental materials shared during the event will be available in accessible formats upon request. And if you have any tech issues, we also offer some tech support. Beverly Hinson will be serving as our producer for this event. So if you do need any assistance with that, you can directly message Beverly and she can help you out. So as I said, we have some great panelists joining today. We have many ways that you can interact with them and each other during our session today. So saw a lot of you using that chat box. That was great. You can use that to message everyone if you'd like. We do have a Q&A box as well. That's where we will take audience questions for our panelists. And that's where I encourage you all to add your questions for them. Add it to that Q&A box. And again, our amazing producers, Beverly and also Francisca from UNC Charlotte, will help with moderating that. So without further ado, I am so very happy to introduce our 7 instructors. So today we're joined by 7 instructors from the Meeting and Event Planning program, and they are going to be serving as our panelists for today's discussion. Each of them has their own experience and expertise in the industry. So while I share a brief biography of each panelist, a link with longer bio information is being shared in the chat box. So our first panelist is Kristen Young. She is the Chief Advancement Officer of Ronald McDonald House Charities of Greater Charlotte. We also have Lance Devereaux. He is a distinguished celebrity event planner and designer. He's appeared on TV shows like The Real Housewives of Atlanta and My Celebrity Dream Wedding. We also have Rachel Sutherland joining us. She's the founder of an award-winning publicist agency that specializes in hospitality and nonprofit clients. Carla Eustache is also joining us. She's the owner and principal event planner for an award-winning full-service event planning company in Charlotte. Tim Myron is a 40-plus year hospitality veteran. He was has director and management experience at 4- and 5-star event spaces and hotels across Charlotte. Joan Eisenstadt is a Washington, D.C. based expert in negotiations, contracts, hospitality, ethics, and risk management for the meeting and event planning industry. And last but not least is Tess Vismail. Tess is an Atlanta-based award-winning virtual events and event technology expert. She's also the founder and CEO of a US-based premier event rescue and execution firm. So please give a round of applause for our wonderful panelists. Thank you all so much for being here today. So just wanted to add something before we get started. This webinar is taking place in October of 2023. And as we all know, things are constantly evolving in the world of meeting and event planning. So as such, the answers that you hear today are in reference to the conditions at the time that we are talking. So any handouts or visuals, even this presentation, is provided with the understanding that the presenter and sponsoring organization are not engaged in rendering legal, accounting, or professional services through the distribution of materials or in the presentation. So if expert assistance is required, the services of a professional should be contracted. So I know our panelists are experts. I know they all do great work. And without further ado, let's get started with our first panelist question. All right, so Tim, you have extensive experience in the hospitality industry, an industry that was especially hard hit when by the COVID-19 pandemic. So in what ways has the meeting and event planning industry evolved since the onset of COVID-19? And what lasting changes do you foresee?
Well, I'm Tim Myron, and welcome everybody. I'm a white man who is sitting in a meeting room of a college right now. I don't have the fancy background, but I will go over what really changed a lot since COVID hit. When COVID hit, a lot of the hotels were left holding contracts that had no value, and people were just dropping out. Now, I think the contracting is a lot more stringent, with a lot less ability to negotiate things. They want more things placed into the contract. They become more legal documents. You'll find that some of the documents for smaller hotels may not be as stringent, but when you get to a big hotel, and the big hotels, and I say big hotels, 100 rooms or more probably, is what I'm thinking about, is that you're going to find that the contracting is going to be a lot difficult, and negotiations will not be nearly as flexible as they were. And the contracting terms for deposits and things, a lot of that's all changed and become a lot more strict, with not a lot of wiggle room. And that's one of the biggest things I can think of. Lots of also even things that you would like, housekeeping can be in a contract now. So we're going to do housekeeping 5 days a week, or however you're going to be here. Is it going to be here for are you going to be here for one night? Are you here for 5 nights? If you are, in the contract will go a lot of things that you hadn't had in contracts in the past. Same with food and beverage minimums. They're just not as negotiable anymore. So those are the two things I think that come to mind most about that. So.
Thank you for sharing, Tim.
Sure,
appreciate that feedback. I'm going to open it to our panel if they'd like to add anything to what Tim shared. I see Joan's hand, our contract and risk management instructor. Go ahead, Joan.
I'm Joan Eisenstadt, and I am a very pale woman who has short white hair. I'm wearing glasses, a blue dress with white and purple dots on it, and I'm in Washington, D.C., actually in the city. Just quickly to Tim, what you said, because this is my area of expertise, and I think one of the biggest changes is, and one of the things we talk about in the class that I teach, is about contracts. And I attended something yesterday with Jonathan Howe, who is considered in the industry the dean of lawyers on and hospitality. Contracts need to cover a lot of information. And Tim, it's I don't think we've ever had the joy of negotiating together. I think that what you would find is that a lot of the things you said are things that I normally would add to a contract. So I think that the issues are that we're all looking more closely at the language and what it means. I agree with you that negotiations are much tougher because ownership has changed and owners need to make up money that they didn't have. So thanks.
Thank you for adding that, Joan. Yeah, I think there's a different lens that we all take now whether we're in the industry or not. Things have definitely shifted. So I'm going to pause to see if we have any questions from our audience here to add to that conversation.
And as a reminder, audience can type questions in the Q&A, and you can find that down on your toolbar.
Wonderful. Thank you, Beverly. Well, to keep things moving along, Kristen, in the context of hybrid events, in what ways can planners effectively balance the in-person and virtual components to create a seamless experience for all attendees?
Great question. Again, I'm Kristen Young, and I'm the Chief Advancement Officer for the Ronald McDonald House Charities here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I am a white woman with dark hair, and I'm actually in the Ronald McDonald House right now, but you wouldn't be able to tell from my fun branding background because I am from a marketing background, and we got to sell the brand. So it's right here behind me. But yes, the nonprofit industry, like any industry, took a whole change when it came to COVID. And we had to think about how we had to fundraise in this hybrid world. Where honestly, and you will learn from the class that I teach, hybrid is here to stay in the nonprofit world. We just had a large scale event this past Saturday at the Panthers Stadium. We had over 250 guests, but we had those guests online actually watching. And that has become very important to us in the nonprofit industry because people are giving, buying raffle tickets, buying silent auction items right online. So you don't even have to buy a ticket to our event, and you can help us increase the funds to that nonprofit. So during my class, I'll go more into this. So we hope to see your faces there. We'll go more into technology and how that has increased the giving potential and the giving opportunities, and actually, increased, our registrant and attendees ease and smoothness to joining a fundraising event and to really participating, whether that's in person or at home.
Thank you very much for adding that, Kristen. That's, again, we're all thinking of things differently now. Even the meeting and event planning certificate, it used to be an in-person program. It's now online. So we're all living in a different, new world where we have different ways we can engage. So thank you. And I'm gonna kind of not switch gears, but go to a different panelist, Lance. As owner and lead designer of an event design company, you've likely seen and probably been a part of new trends or developments in the industry. May you please share successful examples of unique event formats or designs that have captured audience attention and engagement in this new landscape?
Most definitely. First of all, once again, my name is Lance. I'm an African-American male. I have on a ivory sweater and I have my hair in a man bun in the comfort of my home in Charlotte, North Carolina. So great to be with you guys. I'm really excited about this particular question because it kind of lends to what I'll be teaching in the upcoming sessions. I'm one of the newer instructors, so I'm so excited to be joining this fantastic group and educating some new and budding interest, those who have new and budding interest in the events industry. One of the things that we really try to incorporate is thinking about the things that are so exciting to people these days: social media, TikTok, Instagram, and some of the events that we do, it's not necessarily appropriate to do what I'm about to mention, but for clients where the situation is appropriate for us to do so, we've actually brought in live blogging teams so that the audience can get a sense of what's going on at the event. And it's a little bit different from just live streaming the event. There's actually professional editing teams on site so that the clients can have full control of the content that's put out immediately on social media platforms, and they can leverage, that excitement, that engagement. Some of my clients have big followings and are influencers and things like that. So it's very important that things are put out, but are also put out in a certain way. They really want to control the quality of the content that's put out for events. So I'm excited to kind of tell you more about these types of things once again during my session, and I encourage you all who have interest to please sign up. We look forward to learning and teaching you all more. So
Thank you, Lance. I really appreciate that. I do have another panelist in mind who actually is kind of helping behind the scenes and adding some hashtags to our chat down below. Tess, you are our event technology and virtual events expert. Would you like to add to what Lance shared?
Oh my gosh, Lance is amazing. So yes, live blogging is something that you need to do, but you need to also be focused on what I call back and second channels, and be also focused on differently abled people. Right. So you need to, like we're introducing ourselves today, a part of design is still those elements. You cannot plan an event without thinking of every element from the journey from beginning to end and be inclusive in that design from the beginning. And I know Lance takes those things into account as well. So introducing ourselves differently. Am I going to create an experience where someone can hear my content differently? And there's technology out there now for people to have an earpiece on and actually tune in to the experience very, very well. How are we going to, the content that's presented to you, is it in different size letters so people can actually visually see it differently? So there's all different types of ways that you can do things to make it a different experience, or what I would say a customized experience for all. So.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing, Tess. And I'm going to open it to our panel if they'd like to add anything else. Or to the audience if they've added any Q&As. That's okay. That's okay. I can keep us moving here. So I appreciate you adding the point about making things accessible, Tess. We do have a question that we'll cover in regards to that in a couple minutes here. But before we dive into that, I do want to switch gears a bit. And it is in regards to risk management and contingency planning. So as you all know, they've taken on new dimensions in light of things like the pandemic and climate change. So Joan, what strategies and tactics should event planners employ? And what can event venues do and other business partners do to consider that events can adapt to changing circumstances and emergencies?
Thank you. And it's lovely to be here with my long COVID voice. I'm Joan Eisenstadt, and I have been a meetings consultant with my own business since 1981, longer doing the work, but with my business since 1981. And one of the first things I want to address, and what the class that I teach evolves yearly because of changing circumstances. And I think the first thing that I want to acknowledge today is that we are dealing, for any of you who have events upcoming, with a lot of emotion around the war in the Middle East. It has added to the angst that people have over a lot of the other disasters in the world, both human-made and climate-made. And I think that we have to be aware that there are people attending our events now who may be having a difficult time emotionally, and to be aware of how we present our events, how we're aware of them. I think that contingency planning should always be built in from the very start. It shouldn't be the contingency plan after the contract is signed. It's when you do the selection of the venue, the selection of the vendors, the selection of the food you're going to serve. Everything should have a plan that says, if something happens, this is what we will do. And in the class, we talk about specific scenarios. I include contracting as part of a risk management plan. I go back to what Tim said about the issues of how contracts are, and that contracts that I do, I also have testified and continue to testify in the industry as an expert witness. So I bring the experience as both a meeting planner, as well as someone who, and I'm not a lawyer, someone who deals with these. So I think that what we have to do as planners is ask better questions. I think that our supplier partners, whether they are someone like Lance, who's doing great events, someone like Tess, who's doing a lot of issues around technology, certainly Tim on the hotel side, or anyone on the hotel side, that we need to partner with them and ask the tougher questions. I use improvisation when I do negotiation, and that is the two things. One is tell me more. when someone gives me an answer. And the second is yes, and, so that we take the issue further. There is nothing for which we shouldn't plan contingencies.
Thank you very much for sharing that, Joan. Yeah, I think again, I don't mean to keep on bringing up COVID-19, but anything that's relevant to the world events that are happening, they're events. They're going to impact how we manage and how we create new experiences for people. So it's good to keep an open dialogue.
And one more quick comment about COVID. There is a belief around too many, I think, that COVID's over. It's not. I didn't get it until March of this year, after being very careful and because of circumstances. I got it. I'm hearing more and more. There was a recent writers conference that was held in Vermont that was a super spreader event. And I think that even if we decide that we don't want to enforce masking, I think that anything that's a communicable disease has to be part of our contingency planning. We, as an industry, I fear, tend to go from disaster to disaster and not remember the lessons learned. We did it after 9/11. We stopped asking about the issues in facilities for safety. We did it after the horrible, we just had the anniversary of the Las Vegas shooting at the concert that killed many. And so I think that we have to build on what we learn and what we read about and understand that it could happen at our events.
That is.
And one more thing. Yes, my class is the one that's dreaded. It is people come to it thinking it's going to be awful. And I promise that I make it interesting and that it is a class that, whether it's for an event you're planning or for your own business or with someone with whom you're working, it is a critical class. And I use as much humor as possible when talking about risky issues.
Indeed. Yeah, I think it is a sobering topic. It's an important topic to cover as well. And I know you really try your best, Joan, to give students advice that's realistic, also to make things as engaging and, I don't know if light is the right word, but we do some stuff with like some Play-Doh, and we engage our minds and we engage our hands to help absorb the information, because it is a lot of information. So to add on to that, Rachel Sutherland, with your experience in owning and operating a PR firm and working primarily with hospitality and nonprofit clients, is there anything that you can add to that?
Yes, I'm Rachel Sutherland. I am a white woman with gray hair and wearing a black dress. I do have some stuff to answer that. For contingency planning, I feel like you can very easily spiral into being like, what if? But what I would encourage and what we talk about in my class is keeping customer experience as top priority, because your contingency plan helps you head off potential problems that you may not even think is a problem. For example, your guests don't care why the food is late. They just know it's late. They don't really care why it's raining, or honestly that you can't control the weather. They just want you to have already thought about what's going to happen if you're having an outdoor event and it's raining. So anything that you can think about and anticipate in advance, I would say go ahead and do it and put it on paper so that your entire team knows what's coming, because from a PR standpoint, that's going to help you kind of get in front of an issue or something that's happening. And going back to Joan's point, we recently did an event and sent us a survey out to our attendees, and reading the responses back, Joan, it made me think of your response just now, because someone mentioned there weren't hand sanitizer stations around. And I was like, that's a really easy fix to make people feel more comfortable in your space. Like, it wasn't necessarily on any of our radars, but it would have given someone just a little bit more peace of mind about attending our event. So I think that's important.
Yeah, thank you for adding that, Rachel. I think you both brought up great points that you need to try and think of everything that you can before you write a contract. Need to make sure everybody's on the same page on your team to communicate it with everyone, communicate those expectations, and then, of course, at the end of event, follow up and make sure you're hitting the mark. Now, would anyone else like to add anything to that discussion?
Oh, this is Joan. Just real quickly, Rachel and I had an offline conversation before we got started, and that is marketing needs to be, and Tess addressed this a little bit, needs to be accessible to all people, whether it's virtual marketing or print marketing. We need to understand, and there are so many resources now to help people with disabilities and to work harder. I'll put this in the chat in a second. There's someone that I have gotten to know. He's in Ireland, and he is just an absolute delight, who posts on LinkedIn some incredible graphics and tips about how to make everything more accessible. So I think that the more we do to be inclusive of people, the better we do to make our meetings and events so that everyone feels comfortable and that they can, in fact, participate.
Yes, great point, Joan. Thank you for adding that. So I am going to kind of switch gears yet again. We're pivoting. So Carla, you own and operate a successful full service event planning business. So with the rise of remote work and digital collaboration tools, how has this impacted team dynamics and communication within event planning teams, and what strategies promote efficient coordination?
Hi, I'm Carla Eustache with Style Perfect Events, teaching the Business of Weddings course. I am an African-American woman. I have long braids and are wearing red glasses. So this is a great question. I've owned the company for 14 years, and we have explored both fully remote, in person, and hybrid. We utilize a lot of tools in terms of project management and communication. So this is like a two-part question. So I'll just say, how has it impacted team dynamics? I would definitely say it's impacted mentoring and training. So we have definitely gone back in person, but we've done like a hybrid approach. So some of the things you may lose if it's all hybrid is just the skill development and that hands-on. So we all know in events, collaboration, like that physical office space, can be a catalyst for innovation, and you're talking with each other, you're throwing out ideas, you're brainstorming. So definitely hybrid is the way is our recommendation to go. Just embracing that flexibility. We all come from different backgrounds of life, but I think that in-person component is still very necessary and needed in what we've done in our business. Tools and strategies that promote efficient coordination. A lot of, I talk a lot about a software. So Asana is a tool that we use. You'll find so many different technology tools. It's important to have team meetings. I'm trying to think what else. You definitely have to use tech. If you're going remote, like, tech is your best friend. If you're working on different client projects, everyone needs to be abreast. There's Trello. I mean, there's just so many different software that you can use for communication with your team, and making sure you're having those weekly check-ins and making sure you're still available. So strategies to promote efficient coordination is just utilizing all the tech that we have at our hands today.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Carla. And I do want to see if Tim has anything to add. I know you have a lot of experience in hotel operations.
Yeah, I do have something to say here. I've never had the pleasure of working with some of the people on the panel here today, but I think I can speak for all of them. Our business is based on relationships, and everything we do revolves around relationships. In a hotel nowadays, a lot of the people you had relationships with are no longer in the business, or they've moved on to other businesses and out of the area. I will say that for me, you have to get along with all these people, and you're making friends, but you're also making people, or putting people together with you, so to make a successful event or series of events. And so you count on people who have all of this experience and you have experience with them. And when that breaks apart, you're trying to build new relationships with people. There's a lot of professionals out there that say they do the work and they'll be there on time and they're going to do what they say they're going to do. There's nothing like a relationship with a vendor who says, okay, I'm going to be there at 2 o'clock. At 2 o'clock, the door is open and they're already in the room, or they're at the front drive, or they're somewheres, but they're communicating with you and you have this, like, you're in sync together. So for me, I think a lot of that changed when we had when COVID hit. And so I try to talk, I'll be talking more about that in my class, about how we get about in a hotel and who you depend on and how things all start to work together and an event happens from the back side to the front. So
thank you for adding to that.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that events wouldn't be events without people. So it is about people. It's about relationships and about the experience. So kind of in that same vein, thinking about virtual events like our webinar today, Tess, as our resident event technologist and event rescuer, what skills and qualities do you believe event planners should prioritize to remain successful in this dynamic environment?
Okay, I'm Tess Bismail. I'm a Black woman. I have short hair, mohawk, with lines on them. I'm wearing a hunter green top, and I have a very eclectic background in green and taupe, and glad to be with you today. So if you're going to be in our world, and our world is a wonderful, wonderful world, you'll be bestowed upon a term called event profs, which is event professionals as a whole. And the skills that we need have changed. Now we comprise of an entire industry of type A personalities, period. But our type A personalities have had to shift and change and be what I call hyper adaptive. They need to be adaptable. I'm going to say that again, adaptable, which comes flexibility, right? Tech fluent, which is tech fluency is key. Carla mentioned it earlier, but we need to kind of think about the kinds of things that we're going to do. And I'll give a couple examples of these things in a moment. Emotional intelligence, highly key. It helps for ourselves, for our teams, and then also our other stakeholders. Sustainability mindset, I need to think about how am I not going to waste anything, right, through this process. And masters of analytics, data is king. Or some people say data is the devil. However you want to look at it, we can't live without it, but we should utilize it as a way to inform our decisions and move our events forward. Superb communication has to happen. We got to choose ways in which I think we should be mimicking what works for others, right? So I shouldn't say, well, I'm very auditory and I'm very much visual. So if I have to communicate in a team or to anyone else, I need to understand what works for them and then give them what they need in order for us to move forward very, very well. And then Joan hits on this all the time with risk management. And then I also mentioned earlier a little bit about inclusive design thinking. So if I start from the bottom on inclusive design thinking, I want to you think about are your speakers diverse, right? No longer do we need to make sure that we see all white men at our events completely, because that's not necessarily representative of our world, right? And we want to make sure that we're picking and choosing the people who can give different types of perspectives. We talked about size of fonts, right? So if I'm thinking about being inclusive with that, how am I accommodating those? But you need to ask the question to find out what the need is first, so then therefore you can actually truly design. One thing I want you to kind of think about too when it comes to tech fluency, I want you to consider the possibilities of something like an NFT. People don't think about NFTs at all, and that is something they think of crypto, they think of blockchain technology. We hear these buzzwords that are going on, but you really need to be concerned about how is that going to affect the events industry. Because if you're not thinking forward about what's trending in the world and how it affects you, you cannot create and design things that people want to attend. So that hopefully, Krystle, that kind of answers your question overall, is we need to be all things to all people, it sounds like, but that's really truly the truth. And when I say it's the truth, we design every experience where people meet, period, across the planet.
Yeah.
As planners.
That's fantastic, Tess. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Again,
Mhm.
events are just a meeting of people. That's it's about people. It's about the connections. It's about not only prioritizing accessibility, but also checking in to see what people need to help be accessible. So the webinar you're seeing today, I asked our expert panelists, what is a best practice in setting up this webinar? What can we do to make sure that we are meeting these needs and make sure we're reaching everybody that we possibly can? So do you want to continue that conversation a little bit about the skills and qualities that event planners should prioritize to remain successful? And I'm going to throw it over to Rachel, if you don't mind.
Sure, I completely echo a lot of what Tess said too. To be thinking of how other people are doing it and do it that way successfully. Communication is key. All around every event that we do, we can't just assume that because you're putting on an event that people are going to see it or engage with it. You have to tell them why, and you have to do it in a way that resonates with them. And that could be video based, it could be word based, it could be through email, it could be through social media. You have to figure out a way to make it manageable to message your event to as many people as possible in a way in which they can engage with it. So that includes tech. We just completed an event where we used SquadUp for ticketing purposes, which was really great. There's a million different platforms you can use for ticketing. Eventbrite's a very common one too. We use SquadUp. It was a little bit wonky on the back end, but it, from a check-in standpoint, was really easy to do because you could scan QR codes. And I was struck by how many of our attendees were not necessarily comfortable with that, but it was 100% breaking on, I would say, age lines, maybe generational lines. And we actually had some people come in with like pieces of paper in their hand, which is fine. You could still scan a QR code off a piece of paper in a hand, but I think being able to, or having a plan in place to, and thinking ahead to know and communicate with your team, okay, not everybody's going to come in with a phone, and not everybody is going to know how to use a QR code, even though, you know, if you go to Panthers games, it's everywhere, but not everybody's comfortable with it. So what does that mean from a planning standpoint? Does that mean that you need to have extra people at check-in to accommodate and keep the line moving? Because even though it doesn't seem like a PR problem, that would be something that I would want to engage PR in so that we can talk about, because PR, I feel like, kind of hangs out there to think about things people don't necessarily think about and that they may not think is going to be a problem, but it becomes a PR problem if the lines are too long, or if there's not clear signage, or if there's not enough bathrooms, that kind of stuff.
Thank you for adding that, Rachel. I think that there's just so many things that y'all have to think of as meeting and event planners. And I know, Carla, you have a very well-known event planning business. So is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I want to echo, what Tess said about the adaptability and the technology. I think a lot of times in this industry, we don't understand how tech is so important. And I saw that there was a question in there about ticketing, and then Rachel brought that up, but we work on so many different platforms for our clients. So we've used SquadUp before, we've used Eventbrite, we use Cvent. Like, it's really important. I know when we're looking for new team members, like, that tech it is very important. Like, that's what's going to move our industry forward. So when you're thinking about trends and what's trending, like, that's important. It's more than just the day of the setup. It's really the behind the scenes. 90% of what we do is that tech base, that admin, that communication. That is the core of what we do. And then also the adaptability. So one of the things that has come out of COVID is, you really, we were always planning in advance for events, but you always get that one client that, reaches out to you a week before or 2 weeks before. And labor is a real issue. Like, like our vendors, they may not be able to help you. So that adaptability, one of the things that we've done is we've now hired moving companies. So you don't say you don't have a team party reflections. Well, we have these movers that will pick up. So like being adaptable is really key in like making it happen. So adaptability and technology, I was in the amen corner when Tess was saying that. So those are definitely the two things.
Thank you for adding that, Carla. And we did actually get a question in the chat, and I'm going to open it to our panel. How do you incorporate and manage influencers when it comes to events?
This is Joan. May I have a definition of what that means?
I could probably help you there. Influencers, I think in this instance, are people who exist in a space of social media, usually Instagram or TikTok, and have influence. So when they talk about things, people register. Sometimes that can may attend an event, may know about an event, may purchase something. I've absolutely been influenced in my day-to-day by people I've seen on Instagram talking about things to purchase. From a PR standpoint, including influencers in an event, if it makes sense, can be very beneficial. And I think if you are planning a public facing event, even I guess it could be a corporate event too, engaging influencers on the front end well before your event can have a huge impact in driving ticket sales. But that comes with a few caveats. So generally influencers are paid, if not in trade, in actual cash. And if you're not going to pay them, then it requires a conversation about you asking for specific things before your event, and in return, you will get XYZ back. For this event that we just held, which was a large multi-day food festival, we engaged with maybe 5 or 6 specific influencers and said, we are willing to offer you tickets that are worth this much. And in return, we would like a post on Instagram this far in advance on the event. And then you can attend the event and post more from that event. And in some cases, it has been pretty tremendous and pretty powerful. We had at this recent event, one influencer came. She's based, I think, in Southwest Arkansas. She came to our event, and almost 100 people at the event said that they came because of her, like because of the content she had posted for it. So it can be huge. And I think it can work even on a small scale too. Like if you're doing events in Charlotte, that kind of thing. It's just a matter of, again, leaving yourself enough time to plan, do a little research, and then making sure that the terms you lay out are fair.
This is Joan. I'm gonna jump in and use this, Rachel, because that was perfect in two ways. One is that, and when we talk about contracts, we talk about defining what the terms mean. We all have a different view of what a word means. And so that was what I thought it probably meant. And I will suggest that in my world of planning association citywide meetings, influencers can be a board of directors, a CEO. In some cases, it can be a city who is offering financial support and influencing the selection of a city. So it becomes very important for us, and this is a good lesson for today, to talk about how, when we aren't sure how someone is using a word, and this especially happens with contracts, that it needs to be defined.
Thank you very much for adding that, Joan. And if Lance is comfortable, when I think of influencer, I think of Lance. So if you don't mind sharing a few details, Lance, I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, no, most definitely. I think both these ladies have kind of laid out a well thought out scope of things to consider, but even to kind of piggyback a little bit on what Joan said, is to really just to understand the language and the terminology associated with some of these exchanges. A lot of the language and terminology that's associated with influencer relationship has to do with terms of use. So sometimes you'll have a specific exchange for an influencer's presence, but you also have to understand that based on like the terminology from not only a legal perspective, but some of the jargon perspective is used in like the influencer space. What are the terms of use for how you can use that person's presence? Does the organization have the right to use that person's presence in a single post? Does the organization have the right to use that person's presence ongoing after that event to continue to promote that particular cause? So, I think a lot of times people think of influence and the only thing they think about is, social media and bringing this person in, but you really have to make sure you have like a firm understanding of the legal and the agreement parameters surrounding bringing in an influencer so that things don't get messy. So I think that that's definitely something to consider.
Thank you very much for adding that, Lance. I didn't want to put you on the on stage, but I appreciate it. I know you've got some insight into that. So I'm going to pause again, see if we've got any other questions or anything else our panel wants to add. Okay, well, I think we kind of have gotten to this topic a few times already. So it is related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So Carla, what role does diversity and inclusivity play in the event landscape? And how can planners and venues ensure events are representative and welcoming to all attendees and make sure that venues are accessible?
All right, Carla here again. I think we've been talking about this all the way through, and I think Tess and Joan touched on this starting from the beginning. So when you're looking at your venue, asking all those questions, because you'll still have venues, even new venues being built now that don't have elevators. You would think that it's required, but in some states, after 2 or 3 floors, like it may not be required. So just really taking in consideration your group and starting from the beginning. And I think it's in a perfect world, all of our vendors would have that mindset, but we don't live in a perfect world. So as the planner, it is our job to be the advocate for our client and go into these events with that lens. So I think it's important. And I think our industry will be the change. We have to be the change. We bring people together. So it's still very important. And just making sure that we have that lens and that we're guiding our clients.
Thank you for adding that. And I do see that Joan would like to add something. Go ahead, Joan.
I do. And I think that most of us have touched on the issue of inclusivity, and it does start at the beginning. We don't wait to ask people what they need to participate. What we do is we look for a venue that can do that. I worked with a client for an entire year revising their citywide RFP. It's an 8,000 person, 400,000 square foot trade show meeting to ask very deep questions of the convention center, the hotels, the food service providers, the offsite venues, and the vendors about what they did in terms of their own hiring and inclusion of people and how they accommodated them. And I did put in the chat about Jamie Shields. I recommend it. We need to be far different in how we view where and how we do events and for whom they will be accessible in every way, and to have representative speakers. I'm part of a group called API, Asian Pacific Americans and Event Props, and I'm the ally of the group, and we are working hard to ensure that our industry is much more inclusive of people who are from an Asian American community, a diverse community. And so I think that for all of us, and I think that we are a lovely representative group, including me, because you can't tell by looking at me on a screen, I have a mobility disability, but you don't know that because all you see is my face. And so I think that we have to think differently in how we plan meetings and what we do to make sure that people are included and not overlook as, I would say, nothing, but we have to make sure that we do as much as we can.
Thank you for adding that additional insight and information, Joan. And Lance, I see you are wanting to add a little bit as well.
Yeah, just a really brief note. I love what everybody has said as far as the inclusivity aspect of seeing yourself represented within the scope of events themselves. But I think sometimes as professionals, whether it be venues or planners or whatever service that we offer, we also have to really think about how we market and promote what we do and how we represent that inclusivity before people even get into the space for which we are conducting an event. How are you marketing the event? How are you marketing your services? Is it clear from the way that you put yourself and your services out there that you are diverse or you are inclusive, and that a person who may want to work with you as a particular vendor can look at what it is that you put out and be able to see that I could be represented by the services that they offer. So I think that that's just really important too. Not only think about it from the aspect of what people experience in the event setting, but what they take into account prior to coming to the event or even prior to booking a vendor themselves. So
thank you very much for adding that, Lance. It's definitely things to take note of and important items to cover. And Tim, going back to you with your hotel experience, what would you like to add?
I think Carla touched on it, that we have the vacuum of employees, people available to do the work. And so you also have to think about the people you hire and how they're going to act in a facility. And it's not easy to do that when you have a limited pool to draw from. And so, and when you have special events that have diverse crowds, you want to have that be reflected also in the people who serve them. So that's kind of something we do behind the scenes that people don't see in hotels. So
thank you for adding that,
Sure.
Tim. We appreciate it. So we are getting close to ending our webinar. I'm so sad, but I do want to take a moment where each of our panelists can kind of give some finishing final thoughts, maybe related to events, trends, or developments that you anticipate in the next few years. And so what I'd like you all to do, and we will start with you, Kristen, since you kicked us off or sorry, that was Tim, but we'll kind of go in the same direction. So Kristen, and then we'll kind of follow from there. In 30 seconds, what is the main message that you'd like for our audience to take away today?
Definitely. Thank you. My main message is, being from a PR background and marketing and not knowing about this wonderful nonprofit events side of things, I want you guys to take away from this that there are all different kinds of events and planning, and just even think about the fundraising aspect of things, and that it's very interesting and it's so much fun to plan an event, and at the end you get to announce how much money you raised for that amazing mission you're working for. So can't wait to see some of you guys there. So thank you, and thank you panelists too. This has been fun.
Thank you, Kristen. And yeah, you have a lot of really great tips, experience, and really kind of how Ronald McDonald House Charities pivoted during COVID. You had a historically in-person event. It had to go online because of COVID, and you share a lot of those great details with our class. So thank you. Any of our other instructors want to volunteer themselves to go next?
This is Joan. I'm glad to go next, and I will two things. One is that the class is an important class. You have a diversity of teachers and diversity of experiences. And just like Kristen, who works in the nonprofit and fundraising sector, I work almost exclusively with associations when I'm doing contracting, and I work with corporations doing training. So two things in addition to that. One is pay attention to the news, pay attention to laws that are being passed and that may influence where you take your meetings and the reason they may do that. The second is, if it's not in writing, it doesn't matter. So everything that you think that you've planned and all the wonderful details and the nuances of your event, if you don't carefully negotiate and then agree to terms of a contract, you may not have what you want.
Thank you very much for adding that. I'm going to go to whom I see next on my screen. Oh, sorry, Tess. I see you're unmuted. Go ahead,
Oh,
Tess.
no problem. I just wanted them to think about this as a fertile ground for joy, because our industry brings joy to everyone. And then we also bring joy to each other, and it just reigns supreme. A couple of things for the future: you need to be cognizant of blockchain and NFTs, what that can do and how that can affect our industry in the future in terms of people being able to craft their own experiences, how they want to craft their own experiences, as well as protect themselves through data privacy. So data privacy is very key. Have to be aware of that. And a mental health focus as well, because as Joan mentioned, with all of the trauma that's going on in the world, it's going to affect your attendees. It's going to affect your teams. Therefore, those are all of your stakeholders. And what are you doing to incorporate a mental health focus and how you're inclusively designing the experiences for your attendees? So those are just some of the things I'd like you to be mindful of. And join our class. And that little thing, I always say that little Brett commercial, and so on and so on and so on. Share with others some of the things that you say. I want you to sign up. I'm going to do this. I don't know. Let's do it together. So.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tess. And I do see your hand up, Lance. What would you like to add?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to go next. So I would just say the thing that I would want to add is my main focus is if you're watching this, I'm assuming you have some interest in events, or maybe you're already working in the industry. And as you can see just from this panel alone, there's a space for you. I mean, the thing that I love most about this industry is that it's such a multifaceted industry. And I've really been able to reinvent myself in many different ways over the years through this single industry. So, you may come into this industry thinking that your passion is one thing, and through experience, you may find that it's something totally different that you find, that you fall in love with, that sparks your interest. And that's the thing that's kept me so in love with the events industry over the years. So yeah, I just want to tell everybody there's a place for you. We can look forward to telling you more about what all of us do during the session, and we hope that you sign up to join.
Thank you so much, Lance. It's been great having you here as well. And I do see Carla would like to wrap up with her 30-second answer.
Yes, because I love what everyone has said, because I was going to say be an avid learner and dig deeper. So what Lance talking about, that reinventing, like only in this industry do you see people being able to reinvent themselves, do so many different things. This industry is very diverse. There are so many different types of meetings that you can plan and events that you can plan. So my last takeaway, like we're creatives, but also be very business minded. So don't get lost in the creative, be very business minded. A lot of this industry is made up of entrepreneurs. So be very business minded. They'll take you far.
Thank you, Carla. And Rachel, please go ahead.
I was going to basically say that same thing, Carla. Like, I know we're all a bunch of creatives here, and I bet there's a bunch more creatives on the call. And as creatives, I typically don't like to be told what to do or be boxed in by any kind of rules. But in order to be successful in this industry, there's really nothing you can do more than to make a plan, because it is so freeing and it allows you to be really creative, and it allows for collaboration. If you make a plan and then stick to it, your events will come off flawlessly. And of course, we'll go more in depth on all of this during the class. So join us.
Thank you so much, Rachel. And to finish us off here, Tim, speaking of collaboration, it's about you. What would you like to add?
Well, I've been teaching this class, I guess, 15 or 16 years. I will tell every student that has any thoughts about being in this industry, you may very well come into the first class thinking you want to do one thing. By the time you get done, and I'm typically the last class that the students will see, they find themselves saying, I never thought I wanted to do that, but I want to do that. And now I've changed what I wanted to do. And I look around the panel here, and everybody here is pretty top notch, but we have webs of people around us that the students looking to make a change, those of us here on this, we know people who will help them take the step. Yeah, so come and join us. It's going to be exciting, and you don't want to miss it. That's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim. It was almost like we planned that. Thank you, all of our panelists for our wonderful discussion. Thank you to all of our attendees for joining and joining in on our discussion. So yes, this webinar was created to put a spotlight on the industry's resilience and adaptation in the face of world events, while also highlighting opportunities for growth and innovation for the future. So if you like what you heard and want to learn more from our panelists, I do encourage you to go to our website for more information. Our next session of the Meeting and Event Planning Certificate will start in April. It starts April 4th, 2024. And we are also offering a free online via Zoom information session about the program on February 8th, 2024. So during that information session, I will be providing details about our certificate program, and attendees will also have an opportunity to chat with instructors to learn more about their experience and gain additional insights about the industry. So details about both opportunities should be shared in the chat for you. And I know there was a question about a recording. So yes, we will be recording. We've been recording the session. That will be emailed to everybody who signed up to attend, whether you were able to make it or not. You will get an email. So again, thank you to all of our panelists for your time and for a great conversation. Thank you to all of our attendees. Thank you to all of my backup support as well. And with that, I will bid you all a great rest of your day. Take care.